Hello YouTube. This is going to be another lecture for Khan Academy. I'm going to just look at Project Fish Tank. There is 3 questions about it right now on Khan Academy, and I'm just going to start from scratch and just teach you all the fundamentals of how to make that project work. One of the first things that you might want to do is to set up some variables. Color variables you can set up using the function color. See, it's a function. Color takes RGB as the parameters, and it returns essentially a number that sits inside this variable. You can check that out by just printing it out. See, black is apparently equivalent to -6553.6 in memory. So if I wanted to make a black rectangle, I could do fill black. Well, that's not right. Oh. It helps to actually set up the color and not let the computer autocomplete things for you. So whatever RGB colors I put into this variable, like, that's going to be stored as a number, and you don't need to know how this number actually reproduces that RGB value in memory. That's a whole nother topic. But onwards. Alright, in Project Fish, like, you have some code that produces a fish variable. I think they give you that code and then you turn it into a function. So let's set up a little function. It doesn't matter what the function is called. So I'm going to name mine Fishy. You're probably going to have all kinds of input into your function, x, y, width, height, but for now I'll just have, well, I better make the variables something sensible instead of just calling them input. Alright, so instead of drawing a complicated fish looking thing, I'm just going to put some ellipses just to get the fundamental ideas down. And I'm going to color them a color that I pass in. The power of writing a function is that you can call it multiple times with different inputs. So let's get rid of some of this. So if I call it with 100, 100, then it'll draw an ellipse right here. And if I call it with 200, 200, then it'll draw an ellipse right here. I think to explain that, I'm going to want a different color, so I'll set up red. Now, I'm going to call Fishy with 100, 100, and black as the color. Red is a reserved variable. It's for taking a color variable like black. It's for extracting color information. See 166, 166, it says give me however much red is in that variable. How did that even become purple? I was not paying attention. So let's see, how do I pass in center X and center Y? That might answer your question. How do I do this? One of the things I remember about that project is that you click on the screen and it makes a new fish. So in order to get that set up, you're going to need a way of storing the fish in a variable, for example, an array. And you're going to need a draw function to draw all the fish. So what I'm setting up right now is a for loop that will look at everything in this array and pass the data elements into this fish function. So I could rewrite this function in order to take some kind of single argument that encapsulates everything that has to do with a fish. Another thing I could do is to have the fish data just line up just right so that when I is equal to 0, the first element just happens to be the x coordinate of a fish, and then 1 is the y coordinate of a fish, and then the next one is the color, and then the next one is the x coordinate of the next fish. Another thing that we could do is to set up multiple arrays, and then as we're looping over one, the index will point to the different arrays, and so that'll look a little bit nicer. So we got a lot of options here. Maybe we could write out fish as objects. So for example, this could be my fish 1. So, how are we going to do this? We'll put our fish objects into the array. And I don't want to rewrite this function, so I will just unpack the fish objects a little further and then pass their properties, like 100. So the first thing I want to pass into the fish function is all_fish I.x. So that'll go into this array. I is 0 on the first iteration. It'll look at this, and then the .x will access this element right here. So what am I going to do next? Unpack the other two elements. I just noticed I didn't name the elements. So I'm going to have to go up there and say x, this is the y property, this is the cull property. X, y, cull. So that when I'm unpacking them, this part, when it goes into the all_fish object, it knows what .cull actually is. And ONOS is telling me, once again, you can't name that red, so I'll capitalize it. So once again, we have our fish objects drawing to the screen, which just took a little bit more code to do it. So the advantage of what I just did, setting up the program to draw fish objects from an array, is now I can dynamically add elements to the array with this event listener. Mouse is clicked is the one I want, I think. And I'm going to be pushing elements into this array, so I'll just take that down here. And the .push method is defined for arrays. It's a function that JavaScript already sets up for you that puts whatever you put in between these two parentheses into the array. So what are we going to be passing into the array? Objects. What are the parameters that I want? Well, if I click right here, I want to put a fish right there. So I'm going to put mouse x, mouse y, don't forget to name the properties. And I think I'll just set up a random color. A random hue of red. Unmatched curly brace. Oh. Dear. If you wanted random other colors, then you would put the random throughout the whole RGB. Now you can get any color just by clicking. And that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Well, since it didn't let me stop yet, I think I'll say one more thing. Just remember that this is a general function, and in your project, like, you would use your own fish function. So each of these ellipses is analogous to a fish in your projects. let me know if you have any more questions. Goodbye.